Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Barry, Season 2, Episode 7. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with the fact is that Sally, her representatives, her agent, it seems like everything's kind of going Sally's way after that piece that she did, and her manager saw it and was brought it to the mics, and everyone's impressed with it. It's like, oh my god, we're going to sit you down with this profound director and person making this project. And so Sally's happy about it. She's over the moon, everything's turning up her way. But then her representative, one of the mics, Michael, ended up visiting and seeing Barry, and he's like, oh, how tall are you? Oh, you're 6'2"? Yeah, and ends up immediately giving Barry an audition. And you could tell, I love it because Sally's so happy. She says, oh, well, you are your mic and tall? Yeah, he gave me an audition for, he says, for a movie, a feature film. It's no, a movie. Not realizing they're the same thing. And the entire drive there, Sally's like, so he just gave it to you. It's yeah, just because he said I was 6'2", the person they had for the role. It's and it's one of the leads in a feature. He's like, yeah, it's kind of crazy, huh? It's because Sally's just happy for him, everything. I love it. I even love later on, Barry tells this to Gene, is wait, what? He's this is wait, this is 4 pages of dialogue. He's like, yeah. And he's like, they even gave you the, one of the final things is he's like, oh, we're not swim instructors or something like that. It's that thing of, oh my god, they said the title of the movie in the thing, I guess it's right, this is such an important line because they say the title of the movie in the line. Which, that's actually happened. I know it's happened with video games, and I know it's happened with, where, a video game's title's gotten changed, but they will use the original title. The title from the video game will come up because, it's in, it's a part of the story and stuff like that, so it kind of wait, so the reference to, the new game's title doesn't work. I think certain projects have changed like that. I'm using there's a specific video game I'm thinking of, but I can't remember its title off the top of my head, ironically enough. But it's just that thing of, right, it's such that line is associated with the title, so it's, I guess Gene's point was, it's unlikely that they'll cut it. So it's oh man, you're getting some important lines, and it's holy crap, you got this. Because even Gene later was whose cock did you have to suck in a past life to get this? Because I love that Gene's getting him to break down. It's all right, we're going to break down the 4 scenes. It's okay, you find out your significant other's cheating on you. You plan to shit in a pie and make this guy eat it. But then you end up eating the pie. And then, the final scene is, your final line is, no fucking way or something like that. And Gene's trying to dissect it. I'm it seems like it's not as deep as Gene's making it out to be, but I think it's the thing of he wasn't expecting one of his students, especially Barry, because Barry is the most recent of his students, to get this opportunity. It's wow, that's wild, that's crazy that this happened. And Sally doesn't know how to feel about it, because when she's running lines with, I even love when Barry was doing that line, shit burr, I forgot what it was, was it pie? And he was inflecting on in a weird way. And Sally, I love, and I think once again the layers and complications that Sally feels all sorts of way because she had the opportunity to sit down with that Aaron guy about this project. He's yeah, I'm not going to make the movies that are typically made. I want to make something that's relevant and this material that you're working with. So he's making Payback Ladies, which is basically these are women who have found each other. They've all been in an abusive relationship. They found each other, and then they go proceed to murder their husbands, and then they basically do the same thing, which I'm that's an interesting premise. Well, I'm also wasn't there a CBS All Access show? I think they're separate stories, they're anthologies, but I'm wasn't that the premise behind, God, what's that series? Because it's Lucy Lou's in one of the seasons of it. I forgot what it, Women Kill or something like that. I'm isn't that the premise behind that show? Is basically, well, not necessarily abusive relationships, but it was women who had issues with their relationships. I've never seen it, but I saw previews of it, and they would kill their significant others. I think it's kind of the build up to it. So I'm oh, it sounds kind of similar to that premise, but it's it's basically that meets Charlie's Angels kind of. But it's right, we're going to be the women that it's a revenge story. I think a premise behind that could have been just the very drama filled piece that I think Sally could have gotten behind, where it's right, these women come together because they've gone through this commonality of going through, but then he kind of turned it into a revenge thing, and And obviously that's a point for Sally because she turns it down, and then her representatives, both the mics get mad at her, but her manager's like, no, like she's kind of apologetic because she's like, right, that piece isn't you. I shouldn't have brought it to you. But understandably, you can understand why Sally, especially when she layers out everything, because it's like, right, this piece is very personal to me because it is my story. It isn't something that should be turned into like what I think she would consider like some schlock, like Payback ladies. That would have just been schlock. And now it's like, now because this is her personal story that she wants to do something with, but now it's like, right, my representatives might not represent me anymore, but also this piece isn't just about me, because now this piece is like, if I put this piece out there, am I the spokeswoman for all women? Which she's like, I wouldn't mind being like the face of a situation, but it's like, right, should my story is my story, but should my story be used to kind of be the representation for other women? And then you layer on top of that the complications of like, right, the way this system works. It's like, I've been acting and putting in the time and work for a long time, and here you are just getting work. Like, she's like, I literally made you. You wouldn't even be where you are if it wasn't for me. But so it's like, right, the thing you're working on isn't even art. It's just BS. It's a BS movie being made. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's jealous of said BS movie you're making. So she's able to admit, like, oh yes, I'm a little jealous, but at the same time, I'm proud of you. So it's like just a confluence of just like so many feelings just rush her all at once. And just like that little monologue she had, she's like, okay, continue. And then Barry just goes back into it. So I love it. So, but like I said, her manager shows up and it's like, right, I get how important this piece is to you. Like, the fact is that I should be working so that you are able to speak your voice. Your voice shouldn't be, I mean, and that's the complicated thing about, you know, just a little bit you hear from different people, like how the whole Hollywood machine works. That the fact is, something that could have so much depth and so much to it, you never know, like, when it goes through so many hands, how that can transform and turn into something completely different. It's like, oh, this thing that was layered and nuanced lost everything in translation because someone was like, yeah, this will work better if you did this. Like, you get executives involved. That can change everything. So I think that's a really interesting, like, you know, obviously they're putting a very comedic piece on it, but it's like, yeah, that's kind of a thing that people have to do. It's like, right, you make something that has a lot of heart and soul into it, but then, like, you kind of put it in some of that Hollywood machine, it can lose some of that once again, nuance, that layer to it. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. The dichotomy that they kind of like dived into, I think, a little bit with that, because that's what Sally didn't want. She didn't want her story to get diluted into something, what she refers to as just like revenge porn. So I don't know, I thought that was just an interesting thing. And then her manager was like, you're right, I should be speaking, allowing you to speak through your voice, which I'm like, some managers probably wouldn't go that far. You would, you know, but because to have someone believing you that much and be like, I represent you and I'm trying to get your voice out there, she does set Sally up where it's like, right, here's this venue you're going to be putting on your performance, your piece, that is going to be in front of like 400 people, but her class is also going to get involved because everyone else is supposed to be doing their thing too. So Sally didn't want to make it just about her. She's like, right, well, what about my other class people in this class who were doing their own pieces? And then her manager was like, right, well, we can get them involved, which they're happy about the opportunity as well. So things are moving well for Sally. And Barry's about to do his performance. And I love that Gene was like, oh yeah, like most people bring like an acting partner. And I'm like, is Gene doing that just because it's like, because it does seem like they haven't really dived into it, but they kind of hint to Gene had a very successful career, but as he's gotten older, it's probably died down. They haven't really dived into it. That it is breeding the new class of actors. Part of you wonders, is he going to try to ride the coattails of his? Like, is I right? If you guys go off and become successful, it kind of drags my name back into the light, and you know, raise it. You know, when isn't a saying like, tides raise all ships or something, like, right, you do better, it makes me better, it makes my name and reputation go up. So it makes you wonder, does Gene kind of have like a selfish endeavor to this whole situation too, that did he want to go with Barry because it's like, oh, I'm gonna be in front of Jay Roach, which I had to look it up because his name isn't it. I was like, is he? It's like, okay, he actually makes quite a few movies. I didn't, because it's a name I wasn't familiar with. He directed, I don't know if it's all of them, but he directed Austin Powers movies, Meet the Parents. I don't know if it's all of them or was it just Meet the Parents, because there's Meet the Fockers and all that. So I don't know if he just directed like, but there were some other things, like I just quickly like Googled him, and those were some of the first things that popped up on his Wikipedia page. I didn't look through his filmography, but I was like, okay, I'm not well. it's one of those things where like there's certain directors' names like just by like habit of just like but also like I'm not a movie person, I'm a TV show person, and even then I want to be more aware of directors and stuff like that going forward, just kind of being able to like recognize people's directional style and stuff like that. I'm not one of those people that likes to know the movie magic or TV magic. I just want to accept things as they are, but nevertheless, I thought that was kind of interesting. But focusing on Barry as he's about to do his audition, lo and behold, who calls up? It's Gene. He's off with, obviously, Fuchs is using a different name, pretending to be a private investigator. I was like, okay, so he's making his move. He's like, right, Barry, you thought I was out of moves. And Barry's like, I will go back to Cleveland. I'll kill whoever you want me to. But for him, it's like, no, we're past that. So Barry does his audition, but he gives it a very, as Jay says, like, oh, you kind of underplayed that. You didn't even play any of the jokes. And Barry leaves, and he's like, wow, guy seemed like he didn't give a fuck. What's his name again? Barry Block. And I love the person be like, oh, focus on, he's 6'2". It's like, that's an important thing. Like, that's the reason why he got brought in the first place. But I think what's going to happen is because Barry underplayed that and took it a little more serious, I mean, obviously because he had a lot going through his mind, I think that's actually going to get him in the role in the end. So that's where I'm thinking things are going to go from there. Maybe they're going to work out, maybe they won't. But I was also curious where Fuchs was going to go with this whole thing. Was it just going to be like ruin Barry's relationship with Gene? And it seems like there's layers to this plan. The moment he sees like, oh, Barry Blocks, I thought his name was Berkman. Oh, it is, but he reinvented himself. Like, oh, someone who reinvents himself must have a shady past is what, Fuchs was kind of leaning into it. But it's like, oh, you should have seen him. He was like a plastic bag in the wind. He was lost. He had no one in his corner. But together we worked and built him up into what he is. I was wondering I didn't know how, because at first I was like, oh, is Fuchs going to feel bad? Like, oh man, he's actually reinventing himself. He's bettering himself. But in fact, it just pissed Fuchs off even more. Because for Fuchs, it's like, no. You didn't do shit. I'm the one that built him up. If it wasn't for me, I'm the one that pieced him back together after everything that he went through in Afghanistan, like all that he went through. I was there. I gave him a purpose in life. And now here he is spit in my face after all I've done for him. I've been the only family he's had. And now he's trying to like leave me in the dust, want to leave me behind, said I'm nothing without him. Fuck Barry. So that's the mentality Fuchs kind of had. And I didn't know what his plan was going to be, like how he's going to handle all of this. Was he going to put Barry in a situation where Barry would have no choice but to kill Gene because Gene would find out the truth? Turns out Fuchs' plan is to blame Gene for Detective Moss's murder, and he was going to kill him. I was like, what are you going to do? I was like, well, the way he has it positioned, like, are you going to try and like make him commit suicide? Like, it's to hurt Barry by making Barry go like, okay, lose the person that you care about a lot. Because I'm like, last episode my thought was, is he going to try and get Barry to come back? Like, what was he going to do? It's like, no, he's going to strip Barry of everything. It's like, oh, you say I'm nothing without you? Let's see what you are without. I'm like, what about Barry coming after you? You think Barry's going to let you live after you do this? But it's like, I guess because he believes, oh, Barry doesn't want to kill anymore, so as long as I avoid him, it's going to be fun. I'm going to burn his life to the ground and then walk away and disappear. Which is like kind of effed up considering like you're supposed to be someone that cares about him, right? But yeah, the last shot of the episode is him pointing a gun to Gene's head and his plans to kill Gene. Just as Barry's like arriving upon the scene. So maybe Barry's hopefully able to get to him in time. We'll have to wait and see. But that's all of that side of things. Plus, we have Hank's side of things, where Christopher was sending him and his men on a bus to basically get murdered. So they get brought somewhere, and Esther's there. It's all right, so how's this going to go? Oh, they're going to burn you alive on a bus. But Home Dude, the guy that Barry took a real interest in, ends up being the MVP. And I'm like, okay, like I thought he was going to handle everything by himself, which he kind of did. Basically, he took charge, broke free, got everyone free, but they left Hank behind. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because Hank, as this whole thing is going down, he's giving this spiel about how he apologizes for not being a good leader. Yeah, I'm like, you guys probably look at me like I'm some ruthless leader. I think for them, it's like, right, you're the one who made this plan. You're the one that kind of led us down this path, because they were going to let him stay on the bus and burn. But they proceeded to kill a lot of Esther's men, and she was able to escape. And they were able to get Hank off the bus in time. They brought the accordion guy. Home Dude popped him. And Hank is like, no, you should let me do it. It's like, he's the guy he's the poetic leader. He's not the hard, ruthless leader. And the moment this is all going down, I'm like, oh, Home Dude's going to take over as like the leader. Barry might have made a monster without realizing it. And it seems like they're going to follow him rather than Hank. So the question is, like, why is it simply because of Hank's ineptitude that's led to all of this? Or was it all that he said on the bus? Were they already feeling like this? Like, right, you almost got us killed, Hank. This is all your fault because you had to go about things your way. You're not good leader material. We'll see how this all plays out. Whether they turn on Hank, whether they just like, now there's going to be shifting leadership and Hank's just going to have to follow. Home Dudes say so because everyone walked away from Hank. So, because I don't know if it was just like, right, him apologizing to them on the bus. And I think it's just everything in combination. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out because he's the one that set this whole thing up with Cristobal. Then like the whole Esther thing, like he wanted to get rid of her for selfish reasons. So it's like, yeah, you kind of drew us all into this from the very beginning because Gorham was the better leader, obviously. I mean, granted, even he like slipped up in how he handled things, but Hank, let's face it, is kind of a sweetheart, but kind of a gullible idiot, you know? So, kind of not fit to run a crime organization like this. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see where all of this takes us. Next episode is the season 2 finale. So, I'm excited to ultimately see how this all plays out. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.